Hello guys, I hope you're having a pretty nice day today. In today's lesson, we are going to continue with our Amplify course. In this lesson, we are going to cover how to use Amplify.Yml file. So, first of all, I already have the code base, but don't worry, I want to explain you how you can set up this same project. I also already have the file, but don't worry, I'm going to explain each step. So let's dive in. First of all, the standalone Next.js project, npx create next app, latest. After that, also we are using Biome.js, that is a linter form and code formatter. I prefer this instead of Prettier and Slint because has some modern approach. This is just for a personal preference. And also we have ChatCN components, so don't worry, it's enough if you look for how to install Biome.js and how to install or set up ChatCN components, and that's all. So first of all, remember you have to create the Amplify.Yml file in the root folder. The root folder, or the path that is the root where you're going to upload to GitHub or a remote repository. So in my case, I'm going to upload this root path. So I'm gonna include the Amplify.Yml. How looks like this Amplify.Yml? So first of all, this is something extra, but I'm going to save this because we need it. First of all, we have two important sections. We have the version. The version is not a section at all. It's something that is useful to know. But after that, we have the first section, and it's about front. This section allows you to deploy multiple applications inside just one. For example, if you have, some steps for your front end, and after that, you need to compile also your backend, including all other dependencies, including other applications. So you can separate them in different stages and use, for the front end, it's pretty simple. I only just need install dependencies and compile npm run boil. That's nice. But what happens is if also I'm using the backend, but the backend is using a Chromium instance because it's something like Puppeteer, like a web scraper or something like that. So you can divide these. You can, and this name can change. So you can put frontend 1, backend 2, whatever you want. These phrases just right there are static, and it's important use as you see just right there. For example, phases. Phases is useful. Phases are useful because you have pre-boil, boil, and post-boil. Maybe this is something difficult to know. Let me show you something just right there about Amplify phases. The Amplify documentation is pretty big, pretty extensive, but just right there, you have some important information. You have the version, app root, the environment variables, backend, frontend, and test. Oh, I'm sorry. You can change frontend. It's something that I just forgot. Frontend, backend, and test. So you can use these like phases, but are not phases at all. It's just like the independent something or something else. Like, one thing is your frontend, another thing is the backend, and the last one is test, for example. So you can use at the beginning frontend, in this section backend, and test, and more. The idea is to try to cover all this configuration, but at certain point. At the beginning, we are going to use just one, and that is frontend. After frontend, we have build phases, and we have also pre-boil, boil, and post-boil. And well, it's pretty clear. And if it's not clear at all, it's just like pre-boil are commands that have to be execute before the npm run boil. So, well, this is design in case you are using another language, but in this case we are using Node.js, and the most basic and popular command that we used to use to compile application is npm run boil. But in other case, you can use whatever command you need. This is pretty nice because it doesn't matter if right now you are looking at a .yml file or something maybe that you are not understanding at all, but don't worry because we are implementing command that will be execute at certain point inside a virtual machine. So that's pretty nice because we can, well, as you can see, we can install packages and make extra configuration. So it's pretty nice because we can personalize at certain point with some hints or with some specific scenarios. So don't worry, I'm going to show you. Meanwhile, we are covering this course. So as you can see, we have pre-boil. In my case, the most basic one is npm c that allows to just install package based on package-log.json. The other one is boil. So once you already have the Node modules, you can compile your application, and well, it's important install dependencies, because if you don't install dependencies, once you run this command, well, something goes wrong, because if you don't have, I don't know, Express or something like that, you can execute some applications or the libraries. And after that, we have the post boil that allows to run scripts after we have the boil is done. I already know that you can execute all the commands inside the same phase. It's something like npm run boil and maybe some command after post boil, like I don't know. But the idea is just be organized with the syntax. So if pre-boil is for something, if there are boil is for something, and if there are post-boil sections is for something, not because something else. So in this case we don't need post-boil, so don't worry about it. So the most basic ones are these two right there. Maybe are you looking for something specific about running the application, but let me explain to you the rest of the file. I'm going to show you why we don't have the start command. After that, we have artifacts. Maybe if you are not familiar with artifacts is another way to refer compile files or the bundle or the application or the transpile application. Well, there are a lot. Well, this means, or this refers, once we already have the application compile, already boil, once we run the npm run boil command. So in this case, we handle the following properties. Base directory, that is important. Be careful. If we use next.config.ts and we change the output directory, it's important that we have to change this one at all. Or maybe if you're using different folder levels, so you have to be aware to put the absolute path where the Amplify will going look for to the bundle itself, the transpile or the already files compile. And the other one is files, and this allows us to use, well, in this case, a pretty basic regex expression, or just regex, that allows include or omit some files. In this case, we are including all the repository itself. But maybe if you need to include PDFs, videos, some multimedia files that are not useful at all to the compiler or the application itself, we can omit them, because the storage in Amplify is pretty important. I already told you in the last episode that we can deploy application more than, well, with a size more than 400 megabytes. We can't deploy. At this moment, we can't. And I tell you because it's from personal experience. I don't know why, but we can't. And the last one is cache. And in cache is important. Maybe we need to stand alive, or yeah, it's like a certain location that we tell to Amplify, hey, I need to have this alive for one moment because my application are going to use this resource. In this case, we are using the most basic one, node modules, and also we are using the npm param or app, but in this case it's not necessary at all. Okay, let's try to deploy the application using this configuration. I want you to remember that we also have, if we push, in my case, GitHub repository to Amplify AWS platform, the Amplify service are going to include a standalone Amplify.Yml. The important, or something that I highly recommend you, is include your own Amplify.Yml inside your repository, because in some scenarios maybe some misconfiguration, or maybe you can, I don't know how to say this, it's like desynchronize, because you can include something in the Amplify.Yml inside the platform, the AWS platform, and you can have another Amplify.Yml in your own repository, and this is a desynchronization that is not useful at all, but because in some cases takes the Amplify.Yml file from the AWS platform instead your Amplify.Yml just right there, so be careful. I prefer to use this one. So once we upload this file, we are going to see this. The platform are not going to include their own template because we already have one. So let's see that. Let me see. I already have a GitHub repository, so don't worry about it, but you need to include the GitHub repository, the remote origin, push, and whatever you want. Something that you already have to know to apply this course. So let's include this change. In this case, base Amplify.Yml and git push origin main. That's nice. So let's go to the AWS platform, create a new application. It's pretty obvious that I'm going to make some cuts because it's not useful. Just spend time looking at this. That is pretty something that you already know how to handle this situation. So let's look for the repository, in this case Amplify-app, and the main branch. So next, and look at something. If we see edit YAML file, and as you can see, we have these comments. These comments give us the idea that we are using our own Amplify.Yml file instead of the basic or template that AWS give us when our repository doesn't have a Amplify.Yml file. So that's pretty nice. I'm not going to risk clicking on save because there's some situation that create that desynchronization and I hate that. So I'm going to use or cancel or this extra right there, just right there. And there is no more configuration at all needed. And let's next summarize or review, save and deploy. So let's cut this and let's see what happened once the application is already deployed. Well, our application is already deployed, well, almost deployed. And I want to show you, but, well, I forgot to include some example commands, but I already told you that once we include this command right there, it's like we are using a Linux-based distribution or something like a virtual machine. So, for example, if I include echo hello, we are going to see. I'm sorry, I am dying. If we include echo hello, we're going to see the command and the execution result, in that case hello. For example, let me see if I see. Okay, we have in this case complete phase pre-build. So as you can see, we have the npm CI just install package. So let's start with the starting phase boil, and the only command in boil phase is npm run boil, and that's all. But that doesn't mean that we can execute our application in the way we want to execute it. What I'm talking about, what I'm getting at, I trying to tell you that, for example, well, I forgot include the command, but actually or currently AWS instance is using Node.js 18. I don't know why, and I don't know how is this working as well. I don't know if they are using a custom based Node.js compilation, but yeah, currently if you use, in this case, a Node version, I'm not going to do this because it takes a lot of time. I am pretty lazy, but we are going to see that they are using the 18 Node.js version, and currently this version is deprecated. I don't know. Let me see. Node.js versions. Let's see. Node.js release, and as you can see, we have. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I'm pretty ignorant. I'm really sorry. The Node.js 18, no, 18, it's going longer than April 2025. So it's still available, but it's almost at the end of the life. But if you want to use more newer versions, also that we can install any other package that allows to maybe that maybe it is needed by your application, or maybe if you want to change Node.js for Dino, or if you are planning to use Yarn or Ban, you can change that, so don't worry. Oh, it's good to know that this is not correct at all. I almost thought that 18 is already deprecated, so as you can see, it's not deprecated also. That's pretty nice. Okay, so how we can install a more recent or newer Node.js version? So in this case, we are going to execute the following commands. These commands allows to install npm. This tool is a Node version manager that allows to install a Node package with different versions so easy. So in this command, we are going to download the install.csh script and execute the content using bash. We are going to export the environment variable so the terminal can use are going to recognize the command. And after that, we are going to use the last LTS or long-term support version. In this case, as I already see, we are going to use the 22 version. And we set in or use the LTS version they already installed, and put in by default or configure by default the LTS version. And after that, we can install the dependencies. So let's see what happened if we change this one. So let's git add a base node. Let's include just right there npm and push origin main. That's pretty nice because at this moment the Amplify application took the commit or the change and is deploying the application. This service is pretty nice to deploy and create applications so fast and efficiently. This framework is pretty nice. It's pretty clear that has some limitation that we are going to cover in the following episode, but allows to accomplish with the basic and maybe intermediate and advanced tools. So that's pretty nice because we have authentication, data, AI, storage function, a lot. So let's wait if we see the commands. Back in bullet, this is something basic, and I don't know if okay. And as you can see, we are starting with the the pre-boil phase. And as you can see, we execute the first command that you already saw, and after that we execute the environment variables, and after that we are using the the package that we already installed, in this case npm, because if we don't install this command, the instance are not going to recognize what is npm. So we are using npm to install the last LTS. After that, okay, install, well, by default, without any more command, put as current version the version that just installed. But after this command, we can put that we need to use that version, and after that we can set up like or as the default Node.js version that we want to use. So I'm going to cut this part and show you at the end. This is pretty nice, but you have to be careful with the commands that you are executing, because of course you can install whatever you want. Well, there maybe I think there are some limitations. And well, as you can see, we use the npm use LTS and the by default and npm CI, but you have to be careful because depending on what are you executing right now, this is going to take time, and the time cost. I don't know if you remember the last compile stage or commit, the last commit. It took like 2 minutes, and in this case, thanks to install npm, is taking like almost 4 minutes. So you, of course, if your application takes, I don't know, 5-6 minutes, is something that you have to pay for it. So be careful on what are you installing. So at the end, we have 3 minutes with 27 seconds, but the last one took exactly 1 minute less. So be careful with this. And of course, in the following episodes, we are going to cover authentication data, or well, when once you implement the Amplify sections, this is going to take time, almost 10 minutes per deploy. So we have to handle optimization. We have to be careful, because if you are planning to just push, commit and push for each change that you are doing inside your application, this is going to explode. Your bill are going to explode because you are using a lot of resources. So of course, you have to handle that in local, test your stuff in local, and once you are pretty sure that your application is working as you want, and maybe you need to show you for your teammates, and you need to show you for your customer, your boss. So just in that moment, you can to push to remote branch, and well, take 10-12 minutes, but be careful. And of course, Amplify give us the enough tools to test this application in a local environment using Sandbox. But this is something that we are going to see in the following episodes. In order, this sandbox is for another application, as you can see, but this sandbox try to emulate, inside quotation mark, emulate the application in our computer, but of course we are using AWS resource. So for example, if we are using the authentication tool or the authentication implementation, so of course we are going to use a sandbox, because the sandbox is in this case the cognito, the user pool, the user client, the user pool, and the client ID. I don't remember it all. And of course we are using that, but in a development stage, not the production resources. Maybe to make it clear, it's like, okay, if we are using the users table, we are going to use in our local development environment, we are going to use the users table from DynamoDB inside one sandbox. And once we have all the change done, we are going to push the application to the production branch, and we are not longer to use the users table from the sandbox. We are going to use the user table from the Dynamo table or the Dynamo instance from production. So that's pretty nice. So sandbox is like the mirror from the deploy, is the mirror from the deployment. Well, not a mirror, it's just like the other way to use the deployment resource like Cognito, S3, Dynamo, but in a local environment. So remember that sandbox for development or local environment, and the other ones is just for production. So that's enough. Or well, that's all. I hope this video was helpful. And the next episode, I think we can cover. We can cover the first implementation, that is authentication. Well, the first implementation, the first tool, whatever you want. In this case, authentication. And do you remember that we are using AWS Cognito behind the hood? So I hope this video was helpful, and see you in the next time. Bye bye.